Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Destiny Heroic again, and I'm here with another deck profile. Today I'm going to do my Gold Paladin Pellinore themed deck. This is a modernized deck, so it does use the stride support quite extensively. And so in the past, especially once Liberators came out, Pellinore sort of lost popularity because he's a base 10k. He's got a great ability. He's one of the few abilities that allows a second Vanguard attack within Gold Paladin outside of Spectral Duke Dragon. But he was still only a 10k, which on its own is already one to pass on most 11k Vanguards. So I built this deck to to strengthen Pellinore so that his attack is actually more viable when he does hit the field. So to do this, I've built the deck in combination with Pellinore and the new Gurguit unit. Newer Gurguit. He's now at this point 4 months old. But I'm using 3 Pellinores, a set of 4 Gurguits, and the one random Danvalo. Danvalo is good as a rearguard and as a vanguard. He's not the one you want to ride, but he's a decent rearguard if you're forced to call a grade 3 off of your Gold Paladin effects. So Pellinore is, when he's called to the rearguard, discard a card and place him on the vanguard circle. It doesn't count as a ride, if that's applicable at all. But he does arrive on the vanguard circle standing, so you get your attack again. And you get a limit break. You can take up to two Gold Paladin units and put them on the bottom of your deck, and add 5k power to 2 Gold Paladin units on the field. And that can include Pellinore and his booster to add 10k to the column. That can obliterate your field pretty quick, so it's not the best way to power him up. And Gurguits, when you stride, choose from the top 4 units of your deck and call one and give it +2. And then his defensive ability, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. When he's attacked, you can check the top 4 cards and call a unit from those 4 at rest. So it's a pretty good defensive ability, but it can burn up your Counterblast if you use it too much. And Danvalo is just on hit, Counterblast 1, look at the top 4 cards and call something. So it's another opportunity to call something with Pellinore. And so obviously you want to have some Gold Paladin calling abilities during the battle phase. And outside of Danvalo, Gurguit is in the main phase, so we don't really want to call Pellinore off of that, because that would just reset our stride. And when you do call Pellinore onto the Vanguard circle, if you are on a grade 4, you send the grade 4 back to the G deck before riding Pellinore. I'm sure that's old news. But for grade 2s, I'm using a set of 4 Cloten. He's just a 12k for Gold Paladin. If you call him out alone, he's just 12 during the battle phase, so he doesn't necessarily need a booster to be big. And probably the most important grade 2 in the deck is a set of 4 Holy Mage Puil. When he's boosted, Counterblast 1 and call from the top 3, call a Gold Paladin unit. That's when you want to be calling your Pellinore. So what you would do is you would attack with a rearguard column, and then your Vanguard column, and then attack with your Puil column to maybe call a Pellinore and reset your Vanguard column. So Pellinore doesn't, the Puil doesn't add any power, but it does add the battle phase calling that we need in this deck. And finally, a set of 3 Famgal. Famgal, when he's called from the deck, check the top 3 and call another unit. So it's just A, it's another opportunity to call Pellinore, and B, it's an opportunity to fill your field, and C, if you just call him by himself, you can potentially call a booster and get off another meaningful attack on a Vanguard. So for grade 1s, I'm using the one random Liberator Bellinus. When he's called, add 2k to 2 different units on the field. Nothing too special there. 2 Cool Gals. Generation Break 1, when he's called from the deck, draw a card. You can use Din Drain if you want, but Din Drain has a Soul Blast cost, and if you want to be using your Gurguit effect, he has a Soul Blast cost too, so you don't want to be using up your soul too quickly. I'm using 3 Slamies. Slamies are pretty cool. You have to be careful about their effects though. When your opponent attacks your Vanguard, you can retire this unit if you have 3 other gold Paladin rearguards, and check the top 3 cards and call a guard. I think it's the top 3. Yeah, the top 3 cards and call a guard from those 3. So you get extra guard power, and all it costs is this unit. In gold Paladin, you generally fill up your field pretty fast with abilities, so it's not that big of a deal. And for no guards, I'm using the 4 of the Bridery cards. This is your standard Neo Perfect Guard, where you unflip damage if there's a copy in the drop zone. This deck does burn through Counterblast pretty quick, so that's a good unit to have. And finally, 4 copies of Stride Support. And the reasoning behind that is pretty obvious. So for triggers, I'm using obviously 4 heals, 4 copies of Flame of Victory. Flame of Victory is useful because you sometimes you will call it off of a gold Paladin effect if you don't have any other choice. It can power something up while clearing a space and also filling up your soul. So there's a lot of synergy with what this deck needs to do. For Lion crits, they're a vanilla crit, so it really doesn't matter what unit you use in this critical slot. And finally, for Gigantech Riggers, which are the stand triggers. The reason I use this is in conjunction with Pellinore and a card in my G deck, which I'll talk about in a minute. When you call something from the deck, you shuffle him back in and draw a card, and the unit you called gets 5k. So in Vanguard, there's no chaining, so you get to resolve your effects in the order of your choosing. So if you call Pellinore, you can use this effect, shuffle it in the deck, add 5 to Pellinore, and then use the Pellinore effect to put him on the Vanguard circle. So that's basically how one of the ways we get power onto Pellinore before he goes onto the Vanguard circle, so he can make a meaningful attack. And for our starter, we're using Rising Lionet. When you call something off the top of the deck, you put it in your soul, put this in your soul, and that unit gains 5k, and the ability to call something from the top 3 if it hits. That's a rearguard only ability, so if we do add it to Pellinore, the 5k will stay, but he will lose the calling effect because the Pellinore then becomes the Vanguard, and he can't use a rearguard ability. But it's yet one more way to add 5k to Pellinore when we call him. So for the extra deck, 2 copies of Spearcross Dragon. Spearcross Dragon is not terribly useful in this deck. He is able to fill up the field really fast at the end of the game, but he does cost Counterblast too. And Counterblast is we have to use our Counterblast very sparingly in this deck. So this is generally not the way to go if you want to fill up your field. Our main grade 4 that we're going to be using is Scourge Point Dragon. I'm using 4 copies of him. When you call a unit from your deck, that unit that you call and this unit both gain 5k. If you call a unit using a Gurguit effect, that unit gains 7k from this card's effect and Gurguit's together. But most importantly, this is one more ability that we can use to stack power onto Pellinore when he comes onto the field. So if you have this guy up and you have your Rising Lionet and you have your stand trigger, then Pellinore hits the field, Scourge Point adds 5k, shuffle back the stand trigger to add more 5, and then do the Lionet effect to add an additional 5, and then make him the Vanguard. So he's 25, and then you can use the limit break to make him 35, and obviously then you've got a very meaningful attack value that Pellinore was not able to achieve in the past. So that's basically our main combo that we're trying to pull off as often as possible. I'm only using 3 copies of Pellinore because obviously it's not a card we want to be drawing. So we don't want to be drawing it consistently, and we do want to be consistently drawing it off of the calling effects. So I feel like 2, you would never see it. It wouldn't be consistent enough to see off the drawing effects. And if you run 4, you'd end up drawing a bunch of them. So I think 3 is the balanced way to go in this deck. And back to our grade 4s, finally, 2 copies of Campbell. The reason we use Campbell is because he has an on-hit calling effect that adds 2k. It's one more opportunity to call Pellinore. Even if it's only 2k, Pellinore attacking at 12 is better than Pellinore attacking at 10. And this is also good because, as I said, we burn through our Counterblast pretty fast in this deck, and this effect doesn't cost Counterblast. So that's the deck. Tell me what you think. I think it's pretty consistent. The only time I've really lost with this deck is when I got grade stuck. So it's pretty consistent, and I like it a lot. That being said, though, I am trying to cycle out a lot of my decks lately. So I am putting this deck up for sale or trade on my Pojo thread. If you're interested in acquiring it, then you can talk to me through Pojo. If anyone of my viewers are on Pojo, I'm Destiny Heroic. I go by the same name as my YouTube. So check me out there, and thanks for watching, guys. Peace.